The Toyota Camry is a bit of a fixture in the D segment saloon space, but there were a few things that needed a little bit of updating. Now it's been refreshed for 2022 with a new drivetrain and several key updates. So Toyota has brought us out for a media drive, so let's find out if all of these changes make a difference. Now, we're here at the Mangala Resort and Spa out in Gambang, Pahang, where unfortunately the weather is not on our side, but we are still here providing the coverage that you need. So we certainly hope that you appreciate our efforts. Now, going back to the Camry, it might not be immediately obvious to you, but there have actually been some aesthetic changes to this car. So things like the headlights and the overall front fascia has not really changed, but there have been now the inclusion of these little contrasting strips down the side of the grille in order to emphasize the width of this car. So it certainly cuts a very nice profile, very bold profile from the front. Now on the side, there are now 18-inch dual-tone alloy wheels. Again, a mark of differentiation between this and the car that it replaces. Again, to make this car look more bold and expressive. Now, that same sense of maturity extends to the back of the Camry, where the changes are limited only to a pair of lightly smoked full LED taillights. Nothing else has changed because nothing else needed to change. The Camry has always been a looker, at least this 8th generation model at least, and so not many revisions were required back here. Customers appreciate the way it looks, and as a result, there was no need to change a winning formula. Now, something that's worth noting with the shape of this car is also the practicality. Now, we're not going to open the boot because it's absolutely pouring out here, but I can tell you to rest assured that this boot is plenty large. It's large enough for 2 or 3 or even 4 golf bags for that matter, and it's a practical shape, it's a practical size, and there is a minimal boot lip once the boot itself is open. Now what that means is this car is immensely practical and very versatile, both as a business cruiser, for example, for a chauffeur-driven passenger, or indeed as a large family saloon. You can fit all the flotsam you need back here with nary a care. Now, the inside of the new Camry has received several little revisions as well. For starters, now all the interior trim is either done up in this sort of technical design plastic or a little bit of silver trim, which does uplift the interior a little bit compared to before. There's also ambient lighting in here, although it is relatively minimal, but it does help to increase the ambiance in here. One of the bigger changes, however, is the air conditioning control panel. Now, of course, it's triple zone climate control, but the controls, I've been told, have been redesigned so it's a little bit easier for drivers to use, because apparently the pre-facelift model had a slightly more complicated system. I'm not sure. But as far as I'm concerned, this is ultimately a Toyota, which means it is very well put together, and all of the surfaces are relatively soft touch and very well put together. The only exceptions, of course, being a little bit on the door and a little bit under the center console, but these are not exactly areas that you'll be touching very often, which means it's not really a big deal. You still get a large color infotainment screen in between the dials, which gives you things like the advanced driver assist feature, layout and all that all in the middle, and you still get a large central touchscreen now with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You also get a little Qi wireless charger down here, which means you can keep your devices topped up relatively easy. And of course, the sound system is still supplied by JBL, so you get all the boom boom you want on the road. Now, the thing about a Camry is that the front end is just as important as the rear end of the cabin. And so let me get my Jeeves behind the wheel and I'll talk about it back there. Now, in the back of the Camry, I'm going to first apologize for the lighting because it is a very overcast day today and we only have one light on us. So I'm going to apologize for the fact that it looks like I'm about to tell you a creepy ghost story. But in the back of the new Camry, it's a really nice place to be. For starters, there's acres of legroom, but you'd expect that from a Camry, of course. And you have all the usual accoutrements, like a little privacy blind here, as well as another powered sun blind back there, which means it can be a very comfortable place to be. But the amazing part is now there is a control panel in the middle of the cabin on this center armrest, which allows you to, for example, power recline the rear seats, which is definitely a first for the class. You also get redesigned headrests in order to better hold your head in place if you're trying to take a snooze. And you even get climate control adjustments here, and you can even make changes to the infotainment system in terms of track information, for example. You can make all of those adjustments here via this panel, and I have to say it does look really good and definitely makes this car feel very swish. Now, in terms of the practicality back here, you have a couple of pockets in the back of the seat to get a couple of door pockets and a little tiny pocket here. And there are a couple of USB-A ports at the back of the center console. You also get a couple of dedicated aircon vents to ensure that rear passengers are comfortable. So for the most part, it definitely accounts for not only corporate buyers, but also for family buyers, should you want to use this as a family car. In terms of refinement, both at the front and at the rear, noise is kept to a relative minimum. There's very little in terms of wind and road noise, at least until you well surpass the national speed limit, which you shouldn't. And as far as I'm concerned, this does everything a Camry is supposed to. It's comfortable, it's refined, it's very relaxed. You can enjoy yourself in the driver's seat and you can relax in the passenger seat, no matter how fast your Jeeves might be driving, although I suspect this one might need a sacking. Now, behind the wheel of the updated Toyota Camry. So, one of the biggest changes with this car is the powertrain. So where this 8th generation model was introduced initially with an older powertrain combination with a 2.5 litre naturally aspirated engine with a 6-speed automatic, this facelift or 2022 update now comes with a proper new powertrain from Toyota. So there's now a 2.5 litre dynamic force naturally aspirated engine in the front, paired to an 8-speed automatic gearbox. Power naturally goes to the front wheels. Now, like I said, this is the biggest update with this car, and therefore it makes a huge difference in terms of how this car drives. So the Toyota safety sense has also been updated, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So primarily focus on the powertrain. For starters, this 8-speed automatic is a lot more responsive than before, and so when you request for power, when you put your foot down and you need it to drop 2 or 3 gears in order to get into that torque band, it does so very, very readily. And in addition to that, thanks to the availability of now 3 drive modes, Eco, Normal and Sport, it does mean that you can dial in just how much involvement, or rather just how engaged and excitable you want your Camry to be. Of course, should the car not be excitable enough for you, this update also comes with paddle shifters, which means you have more control over that 8-speed automatic box. But based on our experience driving this so far, you very rarely need to call on it because the gearbox does a very good job of keeping you at the right ratio for most of your needs. Now, we've been driving on the East Coast Highway, which means there have been plenty of twists and turns as well as plenty of long straights and sweeping bends. And we can say that this car's dynamics is pretty good as well. There's very little body roll, and very impressively for a Toyota, the primary ride is not as cushy as before. This is no longer a floaty car like the Camry used to be. It feels a lot more dialed in. And as a result, when you're driving even at highway speeds, it feels very confidence inspiring, even if you need to take it around corners. And of course, on the straightaways, this car remains very comfortable because the secondary ride remains just as you'd expect, where it sort of irons out the worst imperfections on the road. The safety suite has also been updated in this car, making it a lot more comprehensive than it used to be. So in addition to things like autonomous emergency braking and adaptive cruise control and so on, the AEB has been updated itself to now have better nighttime usability, and has now been updated to also include pedestrian and cyclist detection. In addition to the blind spot monitoring, the lane keep assist, lane centering, adaptive cruise control, all the way to 0, by the way, which means this car can help itself during traffic jams. In addition to all this, this car now comes with rear cross traffic alert with AEB, which means that if an obstacle is detected or if there's an oncoming vehicle while you reverse out of a perpendicular space, the car is able to save you either from mitigating the accident or avoiding the accident altogether. In addition to that, this car also comes with intelligent parking sensors, which I know sounds a little bit old hat, but what it does is it allows the car to use the radar sensors around the vehicle, and should it detect a potential obstacle when you are parking at very, very low speeds, the car can also manage to stop itself before you hit something. This, I'm sure, will be very useful to the Camry's traditional buyers, which tend to be a little bit older with cataracts. But the thing is, I'd like to touch on the fact that I don't think this Camry is going to appeal to just the traditional Camry buyer. As someone in his mid-20s-ish, I'm looking at this Camry now with fresh eyes. It drives a lot better than before. It looks fantastic. All the little updates to the exterior makes this car look a lot more engaging for a younger audience like myself. And the fact that it comes with this tried and tested powertrain, with the knowledge that Toyota's reliability is beyond question, plus the dynamics offered by this fantastic chassis, the new Toyota New Global Architecture, and this very well judged suspension means that this is something that I could actually live with day to day. Would I like a turbocharged engine? Sure. But a naturally aspirated motor means that the fuel consumption is a lot more predictable. And I have no doubt that in town especially, this engine will prove to be a nice partner to have, particularly when you're stuck in traffic jams and so on. Admittedly, it is a little bit odd that this car is not being made available as a hybrid. UMW Toyota Motor did say that the 2.5V, as we're driving now, will be the only variant offered for the Camry. But as far as I'm concerned, this is a pretty sweet spot. The only question is whether or not the slight increase in price will put off buyers, but I guess that is something we'll have to wait and see. The Camry, this new updated Camry, certainly feels like all the car that it's supposed to be. It's comfortable, it's refined, and it offers a degree of reliability and practicality that is very difficult to find within this segment. Now, with this updated powertrain, with its wider breadth of ability and updated safety features, this means that we can now more easily recommend the Toyota Camry to anyone looking within this price range. Talking about the price, at the time of filming, we haven't been given a price for this car, but it's estimated to be a little bit north of 200,000 ringgit, but supposedly under 220,000 ringgit. That puts it slightly above the Honda Accord, slightly above the Volkswagen Passat, and more in line with premium car makers. And Toyota Malaysia does say that they benchmark compact executive vehicles to sort of understand what these buyers are looking for. They're certainly targeting a younger demographic with this model, and I think that with all of the technical and visual revisions done to this car, it will certainly appeal to that market quite easily. In any case, that's been our very quick preview of the new 2022 Toyota Camry. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell icon so you're notified every time we make a new upload. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All the links are in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Take care, stay safe, and please subscribe so that we can afford to buy another light.